Hello everyone. From today on, please call me 007. Zero respect from subscribers, 0 rubles on my card, 7 herniated discs. Today we have a review of Goblin Slayer, and you know I actually watched it once. Back in distant 2018 I watched the first episode and turned it off. But what if this anime actually deserved a chance? What if Goblin Slayer is deeper than it seems? And you know I really can dig into stuff like that. You see, I'm a sick person. I think every day about underwater internet cables. You can't even imagine what's going on in my head. Anyway, I ask all people without a personal life to watch this miserable video till the end. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's no big deal for you, but at least I'll have something to brag about to my family. The beginning of today's anime is rather simple. A priestess joins a party to clear out goblin dungeons, but things don't go as planned. Some get killed, some get raped. Basically, your typical sitcom about everyday life in goblin dungeons. But jokes aside, Goblin Slayer grabs you from the very first episode and keeps you tense, which is a rarity for this kind of title. And considering that the monsters here are usually scary and creepy, the dark fantasy atmosphere is really well done. And don't think I'm skipping ahead just to finish this review faster. No, I just care about my subscribers with PTSD. Anyway, the priestess gets trapped, and it seems like it's all over a lost poor girl, but suddenly Goblin Slayer appears and crushes the enemies to pieces. And you know Goblin Slayer, or Gobs for short, is not your typical nice guy who arrives just in time to save everyone and care about everyone. Nope, forget it. You think you're in a fairy tale? This guy only manages to save a couple survivors. Mercy kills the mortally wounded so they won't suffer, and for dessert wipes out the goblin nestlings so they won't multiply. So that's our hero. You might be wondering how and why Gobs became like this. Rough childhood? Complexes? So what's wrong with Gobs anyway? Why so angry, baby? Well, at some point his native village was attacked by goblins. His sister was killed, and since then, the guy has literally been obsessed with killing green creatures. Obsessed to the point that he constantly looks for traces of them and every now and then drops lines like, "Time to kill goblins. So, shall we go kill goblins today? What? Sardines on sale? How about killing goblins instead?" I get it. The director probably wanted to make a catchphrase meme to help the title go viral. But because of that, Goblin Slayer sometimes looks kinda dumb, you know. Dude, have a beer or something. You're literally doing nothing but killing goblins. Like you're in some prison. Can't even go outside to the store, to pee, to shit. But no, Gobs doesn't drink. Plus he has people to protect. Like his childhood friend. And here's the problem. I can barely show you any shots with her. I think you've already guessed the 2 giant reasons why. Both Gobs and his childhood friend are villagers. And the place is so backwater they don't even have names. No, I'm not joking. Even on official sites they're just listed as Goblin Slayer and Cowgirl. His childhood friend, by all the tropes, loves and adores him, in contrast to others. But this contrast is weak. People around him condemn Gobs for killing only goblins and for wearing gross armor. What, are you running a fashion show? Fine, how about this? An elf, a dwarf, and a lizard man. Sounds like a beginning of a joke, but this sorry side is actually the Goblin Slayer's new party. And I can't tell you much about this bunch. Typical tsundere elf, drunk dwarf, educated, polite lizard man. But it's temporary, you know, until he also gets drunk. They travel together, drink and fight from time to time. Don't think they're lazy. They just have an avoidant work style. And actually this Gob squad is not just for show. Thanks to skill combos and different strategies, the battles are engaging to watch. Plus, Gobs couldn't handle it solo, but I'll get to that later. Meanwhile, our hero fights and flirts with different women. Childhood friend is childhood friend, but why refuse the others, right? By the way, you can't help but notice the director's cleverness. He saved money on drawing eyes by putting the main character in a helmet for the entire anime. Sometimes it gets absurd, like when Gobs is shopping for new armor while wearing casual clothes and still wearing the helmet. Is his face really that messed up? It's worth saying that despite his bravery, Goblin Slayer is quite uneducated. Like they seriously discuss that goblins come from the moon, known as the Green Stone, and that goblins are falling stars. Yeah, guys, you clearly don't understand life. Next you'll tell me Santa Claus doesn't exist and the patterns on frosty windows are condensation, not Christmas magic. Sure, good luck with that.
As for the plot, it's simple. Goblin slaughter continues. And, you know, I like that Goblin Slayer has neat little details, like smearing yourself with shit or goblin blood so the enemy won't notice you. Adds atmosphere. And you might ask, but why goblins? Why not trolls, ghosts, or sleep paralysis demons? Well, in the Goblin Slayer universe, goblins are considered among the weakest opponents, but because of their cruelty and hatred for humans, they're actually super dangerous. Got it? Cool that the anime even justifies the focus on goblins. And really, it would be strange if in a show called Goblin Slayer there was no slaying goblins. But it's not just goblins. There's also a dumb giant ogre who, by script, must wait for the enemy's spell cast before losing. Even giant rats show up. And the monsters are genuinely scary. The whole anime has strong style, though a bit bipolar. For example, the merchant design. Memorable, stands out. You won't confuse him with merchants from other shows. But many other characters, even more important ones, are flat and forgettable. Well, not all flat. Attention, Sword Maiden. She once defeated the Demon Lord, but the victory came at a cost. She went blind from trauma because goblins are terrible sexual partners. Even the best therapist couldn't fix that. Being a hero, she can't show weakness or fear. She has to maintain the image. Deep inside, Sword Maiden is terrified of goblins after her abuse, and she's too afraid to admit it to society. Something very similar happens in real life, when victims of abuse keep it secret, fearing judgment, and it grows into heavy trauma that even time won't heal. What I really like is that Gobs is just a normal human, not someone with secret powers, not some hidden talent. No, he's just an ordinary guy avenging his family. Other than his sword, he doesn't use much. He just runs in, slashes goblins in melee, looks raw and real. No manipulations, no flashy magic. Well, he does use a teleportation scroll once to avoid dying too early. After all, gotta make it through a 12-episode season. He's just a guy who could drown in a river, who won't suddenly pull some insane trick out of nowhere, who has no secret trump cards, and that's why you connect with him differently. Everything he has is physical strength and willpower. And such an example, an ordinary man with unbreakable will, is much more valuable than 1,000 mastermind puppet masters and clones, I remind you. And Gobs is not some robot. In moments of despair, when his party gets destroyed, we see the hell in his mind. And honestly, with such a teacher, my psyche would have broken too. In the end, every person is fighting their own battle you know nothing about. Meanwhile, our hero slowly works through his trauma, learns to communicate with people, and eventually they come to his aid. The gang defends Gobs' village from goblins, and finally, victory. Feast. Gobs removes his helmet, but his eyes are never shown. Maybe they'll reveal them in Season 2. I wonder what's going on there. Well, Goblin Slayer turned out unexpectedly good. Yeah, for the most part it's just killing goblins, but sometimes it reveals itself in small things, like its gritty economic system. Money rules here, to the point where someone loses a sword and has to dive into a stinking dungeon with just a dagger, fighting giant cockroaches looking for lost loot. And the main character, he's an example of a strong man with unbreakable will who inspires others. Deep down, we all want someone to save us, from bullying, from money problems, from loneliness. But the trick is, no one but ourselves will save us. Time goes on, we don't get younger, our parents grow older. Life, unfortunately, is only one. But the ability to change, to stand up and move forward despite fear and doubt, that is in our hands. We just need to use it. So guys, never give up. Be strong. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my videos. You know, all these numbers are unstable, but if you genuinely enjoy what I do, that's priceless. So I hope we'll spend many more great and fun years together on the internet. At least until I burn out and get chronic depression from booze. Okay, I'm rambling. Time to make the Best Anime of the Year video. For today, that's all. Thanks for watching, Sunshine. See you again. Bye.